This is the state of my violin studio in February of 2023. If you don't know who I am, my name is Drake. I teach a studio of 35 kids in Ithaca, New York. I was a Suzuki kid and now I've been a Suzuki teacher for 8 years. I make these videos because I believe in full transparency, both within the studio and beyond it. And I'm hoping to inspire other teachers to circulate their discoveries in their studio online publicly. So my plan today is to go through some quick stats about who is in my studio, where we are this year, and what we've been up to. And then I'm going to share 5 lessons that I've learned in the past year that have changed my life and will irrevocably change my teaching for the rest of my life. About our studio right now, we have just gotten to 35 members of the studio, and I'm going to cap it here. I have more time in my studio available to teach, but I do want to stop here just to make sure that I can serve everybody that's already in the studio. I know that those lessons will grow in size and length as the students in the studio grow. So I want to protect that time too. Right now the students are ranging in age from 5 up to 13, and our levels go from Twinkle all the way up to Vivaldi G minor in book 5. I have a diversity of needs in the studio too, from ADHD to dyslexia and dysgraphia, students in different housing environments, right? So mixed families, multiple households, as well as working independently at home too. I have a fair amount of Montessori children in my studio, so at this point I would say probably 2/5 of the studio attend Montessori school, so it's been really interesting for me to discover the way Montessori and Suzuki overlap. Many students are also in public school, and then I have now 3 students who are homeschooled. All of my studio meets with me from the time 2:30 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. On Saturday mornings I teach group classes. I teach 3. At 9 o'clock I teach the beginner group class. Those are the younger ones, age 3 to 6, still in their twinkles. At 10 o'clock I teach our intermediary students, the students right before they go into our most advanced group. And that's been a blast. I've learned a lot about teaching group class at the book 4 and 5 level and working with preteens and keeping them energized, thoughtful, generous with each other in their learning journey. At 11 o'clock I teach an older beginner class, which we just launched this year and I love. I highly recommend, if you have the resources, to run an older beginner class in concurrence with your younger beginner class, because I find that the groupthink and enthusiasm of the older beginner class is much higher. These are kids age 7 and up. So I think they love working with each other and they're moving quickly in ways they wouldn't if they were with the 3-year-olds. I also did a couple of really big activities. So over the summer I hosted studio gatherings. We met up 4 times at 4 different places, and it was totally optional, come as you will. I taught a casual sort of extra fun group class for about 20 to 30 minutes at the beginning, and then it was just free play after that. The kids got to play with each other and the adults got to play with each other. I loved it. I think it was a big hit, and I'm going to do it every year. In the studio, one other big event this year is that my partner and I renovated this space. So we repainted everything, refurnished it, changed out the fixtures, added more of my personality and aesthetic to the space. It's been really nice to see the response in the studio and to feel at home when we come into this space. I'm so fortunate to teach in such a beautiful room. One other thing that I wanted to mention is that, as you can tell, because I teach 13-year-olds, I'm about to enter a season of having people involved in their middle school and high school orchestras, getting them involved in youth orchestras, getting them prepared for competitions and such. I have not yet done this, but I'm really excited to prepare for it and see it come to life this year in 2023. All right, now I want to move into the 5 things that have completely changed my life, lessons that I learned in the past year. Number 1 is that these 35 students are who I'm teaching. It's easy, especially as a young teacher, to kind of aim for a hypothetical student. And it became really real to me this year that the 35 students who are in my studio are the only students that I have and the only students that I teach. And it is my job to serve them and meet their specific needs. It also gives me an incredible sense of gratitude that these are the beautiful, wonderful families that I get to work with and serve. And if anything happens in my future, if I get certificate of achievement or teacher trainer status, it will be because of these students and their hard work. So I loved having that frame of we're no longer in fantasy land, we're very much in the reality of the actual kids that I actually get to serve and work with and problem solve with every single day. Number 2 lesson that I learned is I got in touch with the financial reality of what it means to be a teacher. It's pretty easy to calculate out based on your hours and how much you charge, what you make per year. What you also need to get in touch with, and what I got in touch with this year, was also how many expenses that I have. Teacher training, books, strings, materials, travel, even subscriptions to services like my music staff and all of the equipment that I use to record and document my teaching. That adds up, and that is a substantial cost. As well as all the time that I put into the studio that's not paid for by the lessons. I got a grip on how much my partner and I live on per month, and we made some serious plans so that our financial future is possible. I don't want to imply at all that being a teacher means that you cannot pay for your lifestyle and have a living wage. I think you can. I just think you have to be really honest and not avoid the conversation that you're having with yourself about what you're making and what you're going to be able to save and invest. Number 3 lesson that I learned this year is that consistency is key. That if you stay involved in something long enough, if you do something for a long enough period of time, it would be unreasonable for you not to be excellent at it. I have the personality where I'm interested in tons and tons and tons of things, and so it is difficult for me to start something and then stick with it for a very long period of time. I want to start something and then start something else and then start something else and then start something else. But that really just means that I'm restarting from zero every time. And if I can stay consistent and have one bucket that I put all of my energy into for a very long period of time, that will yield outsized returns. One mantra that I'm living by now is that consistently good is better than occasionally great. I think that means that if you're waiting to be perfect, then you're rarely going to ever be able to show up. But if you show up every day and you allow every day to be the best that it can be, then you'll be able to string together a lot of progress. So consistently good rather than occasionally great. And that goes for every little thing, like from the food that we eat to the clothes that we wear to staying in the same apartment for a couple of years, even though that we know another place could hypothetically be better. The consistency of staying with the same thing means that we don't have to pay down the cost of change. That applies also in the lesson. Oh my gosh, keeping the same routines, keeping the same practice chart, keeping the same parent-teacher process, keeping the same intake process for new students, just keeping the same systems for a long enough period of time to actually measure whether something is working or not just restarting for the sake of restarting or because change is exciting. So consistently good rather than occasionally great. The 4th thing that I learned is how convinced I am that media and showing up in public online is worth it. I used to actually be sort of anti-social media. I was of the Cal Newport ilk and thought that wasting time on social media was not helpful and not good for our society. My mind has flipped because I've understood now that I can record something once and it could potentially benefit many Suzuki teachers around the world. Likewise, another Suzuki teacher could record something once and many people, including me, could benefit from watching it. The diversity and access that recordings and sharing media online give us is just massive. And I became obsessed with this idea of actually being vulnerable enough to share online consistently so we could grow a community and circulate the discoveries that we're making. There's a quote from Intelligent Music Teaching by Dr. Duke where he says, if feedback is rare and high stakes, then people will be terrified of it. If feedback is frequent and low stakes, then a lot of change is possible. So frequent and low stakes posting and publishing and just being transparent about what's going on in the studio, I think could change my life for the better. At the very least, I don't want to put up a wall between the outside world and what goes on in the studio. I don't want it to be a mystery what's going on here. And likewise, I don't want anybody else's studio, if you don't want to be a mystery either. So I really believe in sharing online, and since the fall, I've been pushing to put out a piece of content as often as I can. There will be more videos about that in the future, and if you're interested in my thinking process. And the last thing that I learned, number 5, is that it's not ambition It's not skill set, it's not creativity that will set you apart, it's sanity. Taking care of my mind, body, and spirit is the most important work that I have to do. I think 99% of being a teacher is just being kind. To give your best to your student and have them be magnetized to the sort of human being you are. Not everything that you know about the violin, not how seamless and efficient your studio administration is, but just how kind and nice and sane of a person are you. Learning this lesson has given me permission to actually take the time to take care of my body each and every day. And that's especially around sleep, water, working out, getting in sunlight, getting in nature, and spending time with my partner. Hope you find this video helpful. My goal with the State of the Studio is that you could string together a State of the Studio every year and see the process of a developing studio coming to life. I imagine that this video would be quite boring for most people, but I also know that myself 5 years would have found a video like this incredibly useful. So I hope it brought you some joy to watch if you've made it this far. Thank you.